guys, happy Tuesday. Welcome into the call this week. I am so honored to have you guys here. I think this is such a massive conversation, and what I truly and deeply intend for you guys to walk out with from this workshop, whether you end up watching the live one or whether you end up watching the replay at some point. I just wanted to kind of really throw out to you that this is a huge problem for so many people. And it is such a huge problem because we are at a time where a lot of people are kind of waking up to what we can do and starting to realize that diet plays a massive role in infertility. But we're not quite there yet. And so what I so hope to instill into you is that this is happening across the board at a massive global scale because of so many different things. And so with each person, it's going to be a little different. I'm going to go over a ton of different stuff that you guys can do as a couple. We're going to talk about male infertility first, and then we're going to talk about female. And it's going to be really amazing, and information that is truly not out there, is super hard to find, written in a really reasonable way or trustworthy way. So I am thrilled to bring this to you, and my hope is that you will conceive very soon and be wildly excited about it. I have helped a few clients conceive, and so it's always a very fun kind of topic and change around for them. And it's what I love about it too is that it's such a powerful reason. It would be so incredibly painful, and I can't talk from experience, but to want a child and want it and not have it. So not that I want to necessarily focus on that tonight, but I could not comprehend how hard that is, and I think you're absolutely amazing for even having shown up to this tonight and to still be looking for the things that you can do, knowing that you will eventually get there. So tonight we're going to start with male infertility. We're going to jump into female after that. I'm going to give you guys some symptoms lists throughout and really load you guys up with kind of every single area. So when I tend to combat something, like I have done with thyroid stuff, that was both myself personally and a whole slew of clients at the same time that kind of came to me looking for thyroid help. I go after things with everything that I've got. So I'll be doing lifestyle things. I'll be creating new habits. I'll be, taking supplements. I'll be eating in a certain way. I'll be doing like 9 million different things. So I hope to instill within you guys just how incredibly powerful you are, and how much of a massive impact you can make on your fertility, on your reproductive systems. So to start off, I wanted to let you guys know that this has become such a worldwide issue that the World Health Organization is consistently lowering what they are calling fertile. And so the rates that we are seeing now in terms of sperm counts, and we've jumped into male fertility, the rates a long time ago, they would have been called infertile, but we have to keep adjusting just because of how massive and widespread this issue is across the board. So just to give you some numbers on that, in 1940, so not even that long ago, male sperm count was about 113 million per milliliter. So there's not too much to know inside that. There's no test, you don't have to memorize. But what is very intriguing is that in 1990, there were, 50 years later, there was 66 million sperm per milliliter. So that is a massive drop. Plus the amount of milliliters of ejaculate was actually decreased by 20%, dropped in that same time frame from roughly 3.4 milliliters to down to 2.75 milliliters. So this is really astounding information, because what it means is that altogether, men now supply about 40% of what they did in 1940, which makes getting pregnant really scary. Now, I'm going to kind of bring the focus all towards men in this conversation. What is important to understand is that it's really split 33% each way. So some couples that are having a hard time, it's just men. Some couples that are having a hard time, it's stuff predominantly with the woman. And some couples that are having a hard time conceiving, it's a problem combined with both of them. So it isn't, I'm going to, just because of how different our bodies are and the different stuff that they need, I'm going to kind of point the finger at the men for the first part, so that if you have gone through semen testing or any of that kind of stuff, and that has come back low, then you guys kind of know where to go with that. So a whole bunch of the causes of that are warmth in the kind of scrotal area. So that comes back to laptops radiating heat down. If it's sitting straight on your lap, that's a huge no-no if you're trying to conceive. Tight pants, tighter and tighter pants all the time, even on men is an issue. And then using briefs instead of boxers. So anything that really tightens and constricts is going to constrict even blood flow or lymphatic flow around that area, and increase the heat. And so we know that heat kind of goes the opposite in terms of sperm growth. So, so when we bring down those levels through reducing the tightness in the pants, moving towards boxers if you can, make that shift, never using a laptop on your actual, right on your lap. There's like desks and lap desks and different stuff that you can get, reducing the heat there. That is known to increase sperm count. So this stuff is serious, and you will sometimes see this online, and it can be really, really hard, or sound really funny or whatever it is, if you don't actually take it seriously. So that is truly one of the things that can really happen. The second is heavy metals. Now these come from a whole bunch of different sources, from tap water, from really sick or poorly raised fish, from the ocean, from different animals that we're consuming on a regular basis, from the pesticides and stuff that we're on. Usually the animals get the crappiest food, and so the ones that have been really, really sprayed out, the GMOs and everything else, fed to them unless they're organically raised. And then heavy metal contamination and constantly can be concentrated in those animals. So that can be a huge, huge source. Saturated fats, eating high amounts of saturated fats and really, really low amounts of the essential fats in your diet are generally so low in so many people. Not many people know what they actually have to take in fat-wise, and the fats that are actually helpful versus the ones that really kind of sluggish, make everything sluggish and really not work effectively. Environmental estrogens are a huge cause for men. It's such a huge concern both for women and men, so we'll talk about it with both. But making sure that you do, and I'm going to get into exactly what you can do kind of concerning all of these different points in just a second, but there's so much that you can do to reduce those, and they are rampant in so many different things. So it's really important to get those down so that your testosterone levels and sperm count can actually increase to really normal, or what was normal before the onset of all this environmental kind of disaster stuff that led to that. High stress levels. I cannot stress to you how important balancing your stress hormones are. We'll talk a little bit about that as well tonight. And then drugs, both marijuana and cocaine, are shown to decrease sperm count. Alcohol is also shown to decrease sperm count and fertility in women. So getting those down is really, really important, and some medications depending on what you may be taking. I can't say, jump off them. You may need them, or there may be other routes that you can go with, kind of looking at healing that naturally, or finding another drug. So there are some things that really, if you've gone through everything, if you've nailed everything in this webinar, if you've made all the changes, then it may come down to the medication that you're taking. But I'd be hard pressed to, if you make all the changes, to suspect that that wouldn't overcome it. Not a lot of sleep, that leads to stress, that leads to overeating. Usually it leads to not eating the best foods. So that's really, really big. And low-grade infections that happen in terms, which creates anti-sperm antibodies. So little kind of fighters within you that will actually eat up or combat your actual sperm cells. So so that those are kind of created from low-grade infections or infections that you don't really notice are going on, that there's not too many symptoms of. So that is just, that's like very, very thorough, but that is just some of the stuff that is consistently happening around you at all times. So what I really wanted to let you guys know is that it is not your fault. This information is not out there. Men, women, children are not learning how to eat. They're not learning what is actually helpful for them. Most people don't even know that there are fats that are essential that you take in. Your body cannot manufacture those, and that's just the beginning, the truly, truly beginning. So I'm going to jump into a whole bunch of the stuff that you can do. The last possible cause that I wanted to kind of throw out for you guys is smoking, which is connected to a very low sperm count and low zinc, which is happens in the body when you have smoked. So if you've lost your sense of smell, if you've lost your sense of taste, those are things that tell me that you need zinc. And I hear so many people who just complain about it and don't ever realize that there is actually a reason that that is happening. Your body is yelling at you with some kind of a symptom, and you need somebody to read that so that you know what to do to fix it. So in terms of zinc stuff, I'll jump in on that first because there was a really, really cool study that I wanted to reference for you guys tonight. And so, okay, so a bunch of the symptoms. So as a holistic nutritionist, I go off a bunch of symptoms. So how you're feeling, what your body is telling me that you are truly, truly needing. So in terms of zinc, if you have cuts, wounds, or sores that heal slowly, so zinc is so needed in the immune system and really looking at reducing inflammation and healing up. So it is so, so important that you get enough in. If your hair or nails grow really slowly, if you have a loss of sense or smell or taste, like I was talking about, if you catch colds, flus, or infections easily, if you have super brittle nails, if you have white spots on your fingernails, if you have acne, if you have stretch marks, if you have sterility or impotence, which we're obviously talking about tonight, if you have a white coating on your tongue, if you have lost your appetite, or if you have, if you are anorexic, or if you have eating disorder kind of tendencies, that's another big one for fertility. If you have sleep disturbances, if you have diarrhea, and if you have prostate problems or low sperm count, which we're talking about tonight, or delayed sexual maturity. These are all really, really good signs that it is time for you to truly, truly start upping the amount of zinc that you're getting. So in terms of how to get zinc in, oysters are actually one of the most zinc-rich foods. So if you've kind of seen oysters as kind of like an aphrodisiac kind of scenes, it's because it is naturally a testosterone booster in men, and they are loaded in zinc. Otherwise, pumpkin seeds are an amazing source of zinc as well, poppy seeds as well. So those are some different seeds to watch out for zinc-wise. But I wanted to mention there was a study that I had referenced. I have it right here. I will grab my book and you guys ready? Okay. The effectiveness of zinc is best illustrated by a study of 33. It's so weird. Okay, sorry guys. I swear I wrote it down. Oh yeah, zinc. Okay, there we are. 60 milligrams. So the group of 22 people with low testosterone which you usually only find out about if you went to go see a naturopath and got a blood test done, or if you had somebody who could read your symptoms. But low testosterone, 22 people in this study were given 60 milligrams of zinc per day, and the study went on for 45 to 50 days. Now, the couples that were included in this study, and the zinc was only given to the men, the couples were infertile for 5 years, so had been trying to conceive with unprotected sex for 5 years by the time the study happened. During the study, which was only 45 to 50 days long, 9 of 22 wives became pregnant. So when I say that zinc is important for men, it is vitally and hugely and amazingly important. And when I talk about diet changes, you are going to be astounded at how quickly you can really, really turn things around. So that's just one nutrient of several that we are going to be talking about today. Now, if you are eating oysters all the time, if you eat tons of pumpkin seeds, if you are taking a zinc supplement, in the study they were using 60 milligrams of zinc sulfite. So that would be what you would want to, if you were looking to replicate that exact study, that was the nutrient kind of blend that they were using. So that is truly one piece of this entire puzzle. So what can you do? So obviously we just spoke about zinc. So the second thing you can do is lower your estrogen levels. So lower what you're taking in that is really estrogen dense. Now this is hugely, hugely important to do. You always want to swap out your meat and your dairy and any fish that you're getting first, because they will, more meat and dairy more so than fish, for estrogen specifically, because what has happened is most crops that are being grown as cattle feed are GMO at this point, so they're genetically modified. What that means is that they've taken a gene out of the corn or the soy or whatever they're growing, which makes it not react to herbicide, so that they can spray herbicide over a field, and that the one that they've genetically modified will keep growing, but that, like dandelions and big, weeds and stuff will die off when they can spray the whole field. So it's more efficient to grow that way, because they can spray the entire thing, try and kill off everything else. The problem is that nature is getting smarter, and now they're having to spray more and more and more and more and more, and the sprays are heavily estrogenic. They're herbicide that they're spraying on these fields. Now, on its own, that is also an issue, because you don't necessarily want to be taking that in. But what happens that's worse is that if you are eating fatty animal foods, if that's what they have been eating day in and day out every single day, their livers eventually don't have the capacity or the nutrient density to be able to get estrogen out at an effective enough rate that it doesn't have an impact on them. So when we talk about meat being highly estrogenic at this point, that is true. And so you always want to swap out any high-fat meat or high-fat dairy, and any kind of dairy, swapping it over to organic. So that's one of the first calls to make to lower your estrogen levels. After that, getting the GMO crops, which are mostly corn, soy, sugar, and potatoes. Those are probably the main ones. Corn, soy, canola are the really big ones. So getting those out of your diet, and unless they're organic at that point as well. For men, you probably shouldn't be eating too much soy on its own anyways. It does have phytoestrogen in it. So if you've heard about soy and you'll get breasts and all this other kind of stuff, you'd have to eat a ton of soy. But what the phytoestrogen means is that if you were looking at estrogen like it was a dial on the stove, right? So you can turn up your stove all the way to 10, or you can turn it. So with xenoestrogen, so the ones that they're spraying, well, I'll talk about that in a second, but the ones that they're spraying on the fields are synthetic. They're xenoestrogens. So they're really strong. They're almost like you take the estrogen, you put it in your body, and you turn it all the way up to 10. Now, the estrogens that a female's body will make are usually would power your body at about a 5, so much lower. So that's why these estrogens that are out there in the environment are so super dangerous, because they're just so much stronger than our natural estrogens are. And then the phytoestrogens, so the ones from soy, would be up around a 2 or so. And so they're very low acting. But when we talk about soy being one of the most genetically modified crops right now, I think last I heard it was about 90% of the soy that's being grown and consumed is genetically modified. So that's something to watch out for. Most soy is. And that's then you've got the combination of the sprays on the soy as well as the actual kind of level 2 kind of estrogens that are going in. So going organic on your meat and dairy, and then starting to go organic on your GMOs as well. So hit those all up at the same time. Start making that swap. It is worth it. You will feel better. You'll probably notice the meat cooks differently and tastes better anyways. And so that is a really big change to make. And then as far as getting estrogens out, try to eat less and less out of a can. The can linings often have BPA in them, which was banned because it's highly estrogenic, but it was only banned in some stuff. And cans were not necessarily one of the things. So always, if you can, Eden Organic is a brand that I know of at least, that has taken the BPA out of their can lining. So that's really important. And then getting away from plastics. Again, there's a whole bunch of different hormone disruptors and estrogenic substances in plastics, and that's originally what BPA was. Then they found out it was so strongly estrogenic that after a while they said it's time to get it out. But we don't know what they have replaced it with, and we don't know how strongly that acts until they do studies in probably 5 or 10 years. So it could be just as bad. So that's worth noting. So we covered zinc so far, and we've covered estrogen so far. We also covered kind of looser pants, stop putting heat sources on your crotch area, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the top 3 so far. For the last couple, the low-grade infection is really important, and this is something that I'll talk about with women as well, but it can be so important to kind of dose yourself out of any kind of yeast that you may have. Oftentimes a woman will go through like a yeast, what is that? A vaginal yeast infection, and take the pills or insert the pills or whatever it is, and kind of get it out. But if you have been having unprotected sex with her, then you've already passed it. And so if you have any kind of an itch in that area, you shouldn't, although it's very common, it is not normal and it's not optimal health. So you really need to cleanse that out, which would look like doing a candida cleanse, followed by taking really high dose probiotics for at least a month or 2, really intensively taking like at least 50 billion colony forming units. So I do have some candida information on my website. So if you go to glownc.ca/blog, and then in the little search bar that comes up, if you search in acne, then it was part of an acne article that I did. So the information is the same, even though it's kind of looking at healing something else. So that can be that part. That's the biggest kind of point blank, grand statement that I can make for healing up an infection. At the point that you realize that you are not conceiving, you've probably already been to your doctor. So obviously getting tested for STIs and STDs and stuff is really important, and dealing with those either through the conventional methods or finding somebody natural to work with who can help you is super important to get any of those low-grade infections that are just constantly running really hard on sperm counts. So that's important to get out. And then stop smoking or avoid heavy secondhand smoke as much as you possibly can. Okay, so then the last, I guess the I'll maybe give you guys two more. I don't want to overload you, but I also want you to know how much there is that you can possibly do. And I'm trying to give you guys kind of a view of what that would look like in the person. So think we talked about some of the symptoms. That would be a good time to then do that. With estrogen, if you gentlemen have weight gain in your belly area, that almost like you see it sometimes where the men almost look pregnant, that is definitely like extreme high estrogen. And so that is a time to really, really work with somebody to get your estrogen levels back down fast so that you can start feeling incredibly strong and vital and all that good stuff again. So the two last pieces that I'm going to give you are that dietary vitamin C that was dropped in a study from 250 milligrams per day to 5 milligrams per day in men, found that the sperm, the swimmer guys, with damaged DNA increased by 91%. So it is incredibly important that you are getting enough vitamin C. And again, that is just one more example of a nutrient that's really, really helpful, because that can cause so much heartache, even if you are able to conceive that the DNA was actually damaged, is massive, massive. That can be lifelong for your potential future child, and heartbreaking if the pregnancy gets terminated because of that. So that's another, and what we're talking about in terms of damage, these sperm cells are so susceptible to damage, just based on kind of what surrounds them, what they're made of. Free radicals can get in there really easily, which are just basically things that will hurt the body, either pollution or exhaust fumes or the estrogens that we're talking about, or a whole bunch of smoking for sure, like tons, all of those kinds of things. And so when we're talking about vitamin C, we're talking about one of your prime antioxidants that will help to protect all of your cells, but especially your sperm cells. So that can be so, so important. And vitamin C is the cheapest possible to dose yourself with high amounts of antioxidants. You can also have raw cacao as a food, which is raw chocolate powder. Adding that to your smoothies is amazing. Matcha green tea powder is massively antioxidant rich. Those are way more powerful than looking at pomegranates, or when we hear about blueberries or stuff. Those are also fabulous to be eating. But there are so many more powerful foods even than that. And if I was dealing with a couple who was having a hard time conceiving, I'd be going for the top of the line, like the most punch, so that you start to really feel things. And so that you can conceive as fast as possible. Because if you've been trying for a long time, then the kind of excitement to actually conceive would be very, very high. The last piece of really helpful advice that I'm going to give you, although I do recommend that you watch this not only over and over again so that you really get all this stuff in, but that you also watch the female side, because there's some stuff that crosses over, but I want to give you guys a break so that you can kind of piece together, box in like your job as stuff. So the last thing I'm going to throw out to you guys is cottonseed oil is something to read like a maniac, all of your ingredients. So when you are purchasing something that is boxed, look and make sure there is not cottonseed oil in it. It is so effective at killing sperm that it has actually been studied as a male form of birth control pill. So get it out. Often anything that's fried, usually the really cheap quality oils are cottonseed, and that is so dangerous for men to be taking in, especially when they are looking to conceive. So that is something to truly, truly keep in mind. It is that potent and that powerful in the body that it was looked at for male birth control options, which is mind-blowing. So the things that kind of carry over to the female side, so that I can throw you guys there. Now, if you're part of the Glow membership and seeing this video from that, then you can jump into the thyroid section on another day. There's amazing stuff there. We're going to be talking about estrogen in the women. So those things kind of carry over. So that's really, really important to note. but the thyroid health especially. And note that even if your blood tests are coming back normal, first of all, if your doctor touched your thyroid gland at all, palpated it, tried to feel it, and then you went for your blood test, that blood test is now inaccurate, because we know that as you palpate the thyroid gland, thyroid hormone is released into your system, and it's usually low thyroid hormone that causes infertility. And so it's really, really important that they do not touch your thyroid gland prior to your thyroid testing. And it is so, so important that you balance it back out. Even if they don't touch it and it is in the normal range, I can give you the Canadian range is 0.5 to 5 for TSH, and you want yours to be in the ideal for conception range of 0.5 to 2. So that's a much smaller range, and if you aren't diagnosed and you're not treated, you're not given medication, if it's not that bad, then you have to work with somebody natural if you're really looking to conceive. Or again, there's amazing information inside the Glow membership. Yeah, so that is something that I really, really urge you to take care of, because that is huge. So I'll talk about that on the female side, also big for them, but big on both sides. So I'll carry that over for that chat. Otherwise, that is all for now for the men's section. So I'm going to give you guys a second. You can feel free to pause this. I know that was kind of energy intensive, probably like a ton into your head. But just take a second, take a breather. If you're feisting through and like, I can remember everything, I'm taking hardcore notes, then power to you. But also take a second now, just relax so that we can fill your brain up some more with all of these stuff for women's health. So in terms of infertility or having a really hard time conceiving for ladies, there are a lot of really, really big reasons that women have a hard time conceiving. And before I talked about kind of a 30-30-30 or 33 if you want to get technical. So in 33% of cases, it'll be the female as the issue. In 33, it'll be the male. And in 33, it's something that's going on with the male and the female combined. So it is really, really important. And there is so much that you can do. So keep that in mind. Get excited. Okay, so overly intense exercise can really, really tank out the thyroid gland and tank out your fertility. So if you have all these big goals, I've had a few clients who have these really big goals that they want to achieve before they have a kid, because they don't feel that they may have the time or the ability afterwards. I had one who was training for a half marathon at the time and running every single day, training up for it. And I have done a marathon. I would not be trying to conceive while I was in the training for one, just because it's really, really intensive. And she was training like a gong show, like heavily. And that really tanks out your fertility, because your body doesn't know what's going on. And so if there was a natural disaster and you were running to try and get, further south or, wherever it is, then your body's in a state of stress. And when it gets into that panic stress because it doesn't know why you're running all the time, then the last thing on your body's mind is going to be getting pregnant. It always works by what is most important that we do right now to actually be able to move forward. So that's really, really important. That you understand that, and that you start to kind of change over what you're doing and assess why you're doing it, and if you can do it at another time, or train for the marathon and after it, then look at starting to conceive. It can be very hard, and especially when you're looking at running those long distances, when we're talking about antioxidants and free radicals, damagers and kind of fixers of the body. In the men's section, you are actually creating so many free radicals while you're running really, really long distances that it's so hard to repair. So to then stabilize and have your hormones working fantastically on top of that huge issue can be so big. Heavy stress, that impacts all the different hormones. It's one of the huge domino effects that cascades and screws up so many. Eating too much sugar, screws up your stress hormones, and then you're stressed, and then that is, so sugar's like the first domino, your blood sugar balance being off, and then your stress levels really rising, and then anxiety happening, depression happening, and all of this other stuff, and your thyroid's now whacked out because your stress hormones are going all the time. When you're in that state of stress, your body is not thinking of fertility because it, again, doesn't know what's going on. It's just reacting to the stress hormones. So it is so, so important that you get your stress levels and your sugar eating under control. In that case, I would be looking at the sugar call that we did, and also that article that I mentioned in the men's section, where if you search up acne on my website, on my blog, then you will be able to see kind of the candida rundown to get, because that will kill off your cravings after you have done that cleanse and reestablished your gut bacteria, because it is part of the yeast. The yeast and bad bacteria in your body thrive on sugar. And so when you feel like you have this craving that you cannot control, it's often because it's coming from deeper than just you as well. There are actual bacteria that it's a life or death situation if they get that. And so when they're dying off, they make noise, basically. Not actual noise, you're not going to hear it, but you're going to crave it like a crazy person. Estrogen levels, huge, huge. If you have any of the estrogen dominant conditions like endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, ovarian cysts, uterine fibroids, gosh, there's so many. I'll leave you with those ones. If you have any of those estrogen dominant conditions, it is so important to get estrogen out of your life. Now, for men, I kind of told them what they could do to eliminate where it's coming from. For women and men both, it can be really helpful to include the cruciferous family of vegetables, or if you want to go even higher than that, more powerful than that, then going straight for broccoli sprouts. Now, what's really cool about the cruciferous vegetables, so things like Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, mustard greens, there's so many, cabbage, I'll leave you with those guys. They have a few different nutrients that actually work in the liver to help break down and get estrogen out of your body. So that's really, really helpful for you guys. Now, in terms of broccoli sprouts, it's about 1/4 cup of broccoli sprouts give you the nutrient density of 2.5 cups of broccoli. So that is huge. To be able to eat 1/4 cup and get 2.5 cups worth of nutrients is absolutely massive. So in terms of getting those hormones out of your system, that's going to help you a lot faster by eating a lot less of it. So I always like to do that. It's like, what is the most powerful, and then pound it in from there. So that can be really helpful. At the same time that you are lowering estrogen levels, you want to truly, truly increase progesterone levels. And that is something that can be done with maca powder very naturally. And when progesterone levels start to rise, which is a hormone that you will need to be able to carry your baby to term, when those levels start to rise, then estrogen levels naturally start to fall. They antagonize each other. They fight against each other. So as the good one, not good and bad, but as progesterone starts to rise, estrogen levels will fall, and that's when you'll eventually come back into balance. But when I say eventually, I mean if you are doing this targeted, if you are eating broccoli sprouts, if you are if you talk to me, if you're in the Glow membership, come on one of the calls and ask for what a supplement is that I'd recommend for you specifically, because I need you in the chat box to be able to kind of recommend it effectively. If you're doing that and a few other things, then you'll really get your levels kind of balanced back out. So that'll really, really help you. Okay, so then obesity. So if that is part of your that can be a really, really big part of the cause. Although when we're talking about everything else together, your estrogen levels would impact your obesity and vice versa. And so it just means it's generally going to take longer for everything to heal up. And weight loss is really, really important at that point. So if you are looking for help on that, there's loads of resources inside, videos and everything inside the Glow membership as well on that one. And then lastly, I guess not lastly, we've got a few more. But thyroid issues are so massive. And again, I said this with the guys, but I really want to kind of re-articulate it in case you're kind of like, whoa, so much information. In terms of thyroid issues, you want yours to be in the ideal range. So I'm going to give you a Canadian range, but you can always, like a quick Google search to convert it to American, and then always get a copy of your blood test so that you have it so that you can actually reference it. Or if they won't let you take a copy or it costs to take a copy, try and take a picture of it. Do whatever you can so that you have your own health information. That is so important for so many reasons beyond just this number. But start to build up your own kind of library of health information so that you can see where you're at and actually get that information in. But you want your thyroid issues your TSH to score between 0.5 and 2, which is lower than what they'll call normal. So if your blood tests are coming back and everything's normal and they don't know what's going on and they don't know what's wrong, then really make sure that you look at your TSH number and that you get it. Now, past 5, they will give you medication for it. But below 5 and between the optimal 2 and 5, that's where they're going to not be able to do anything. They won't diagnose, they won't medicate. And so you have no choice but to either wait for your thyroid to get worse, which can take years. Your body can take a massive amount of abuse before it starts to really yell at you. Or you can come see somebody natural and actually start feeling way more energized and aware and awake and alert and refreshed when you come back from sleeping and all of that good stuff too. And again, inside the Glow membership, I've done the best training, hands down. Not even worried about bragging about it. The best thyroid training inside the Glow membership. So keep your eyes there if thyroid issues have been something really big for you. And then vitamin E is really important to take in because it nourishes the endocrine system. So your whole hormonal system, it really helps to nourish. So cold pressed fats from nuts or seeds are so important. Wheat germ or rice bran oil are both really high sources of vitamin E, as well as there's something that they can pull from, I think, sunflower seeds that's quite high in vitamin E. I keep wanting to say vitamin C. Vitamin E as well. So that can be some good stuff for you to keep in mind. So when we're talking about lowering saturated fat and upping your essential fats, this is applicable to both men and women as well. But we are talking about every single cell in your body, and there's about 50 trillion. Almost every single one has a double bilipid layer. So it has kind of 2 layers. Now, in between are a whole bunch of fats. And I'm getting to why this is super important. So if you're not a biology, that's okay. It's okay. We'll get there. So when you're eating saturated fats, then they kind of line up like this, just flat squares. When you get in the essential fats, especially the omega-3 essential fat, which is called alpha-linolenic acid, which you'll want to get from flaxseed oil, then they kind of look like this. They're like a little bit kind of bent. And so what that does is when it's inside this kind of cell wall, it opens up room on the outside to be more receptive to things. And as that happens across your entire body, and endocrine system, your hormones, everything starts to work better. But it does take time for your cells to renew with the new nutrients that you have. So what I love the most is when clients come to me looking to conceive in about 3 months' time, and we can actually work on everything incredibly intensively for 3 months, clear up everything, get everything back balanced and under control, and then at that point they can start trying. And most will conceive within a month or 2 after that. So when I talk about how important this is, it is mega, hugely massive, important, and really helpful. So there's also ovulation all over the place, which really just points to you needing to balance out your hormones. So all of the stuff that I said before about hormone balance and estrogen dominant conditions and upping your progesterone levels is all works the same. pH levels and infections are really, really important. So when I talked about a candida cleanse, or getting rid of sugar, killing off the yeast, killing off bad bacteria, and really, really inputting really great bacteria into your body, that is so important for men and for women to do. And when you do that, you will not experience yeast infections anymore. They will be a thing of the past. Bladder infections won't really happen because your bacteria creates, the good ones create acids that keep your pH both in your vagina and in your digestive tract and in your kidneys a really, really the perfect pH, so that other bad stuff can't thrive there. It just won't. And so that is really important, especially when you take into account how many women often have yeast infections all the time that they just can't kick. And it is so important to tag team as a couple and fight that together, so that you both do the cleanse at the same time. You both take the high dose probiotics at the same time, so that you can clear it out from within you for once and for all, and then you don't have to deal with it again. So that's so important. And in the vagina, what is also really cool is that the first bacteria that your baby is going to get are coming from your vaginal tract. And if they do not get that, if they come from cesarean birth, they will not get that first dose of bacteria. And so in terms of kind of pregnancy stuff, it can help hugely to make sure that that bacteria is as healthy as possible. And I know it sounds gross, and I know we usually look at bacteria as a really bad thing, but it is so, 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 so massively important. As well, your baby, if you decide to breastfeed, then your baby's going to be getting bacteria from you the whole time. So you really want to make sure that you're getting fabulous doses of really good bacteria in at least before you conceive, and probably throughout pregnancy, throughout breastfeeding as well, would be kind of the best case. Okay, so then the next thing can be don't know when you ovulate, or you don't understand fertility. I am simply point blank going to go grab it. You want to get access to this book here. It is absolutely amazing. You probably know the one that I'm grabbing if you have looked into your own ovulation. It is called Taking Charge of Your Fertility. This is my copy. And it is by Tony Weschler. So that is, I'm going to leave it up so that you guys can see it. It probably looks a little different now. There's probably like a million different editions at this point. But you can use it either for contraception, natural contraception, or to get pregnant. And if you have looked, there's cervical kind of fluid options now that can happen. Now, you always want to try and conceive when your cervical fluid, so the discharge that you would see, is very, very stringy. If you're not getting that, then you probably have food allergies going on. You probably have a whole bunch of imbalances, and it's really important to kind of balance back out those hormones. So a lot of it comes back to that. But if you do, then you want to have sex, especially on the days when everything's stretchy. That's like your best possible case. So we talked about that. Thyroid health we have covered. Stress is so important, so we kind of covered that as well. Lastly, I wanted to, I guess, two more pieces. Lastly, clean up any lubricant or stuff that you're using. If you're using any kinds of sexual related products, make sure that they're natural. Beyond that, make sure that they're really, really clean ingredients. If you want to check out an awesome, I'm not affiliated or anything, but I love the ladies there. And they are absolutely amazing, astounding, always researching, and just really, really fabulous. You can check out ecosex.ca, which was formerly the Red Tent Sisters. And they will be able to kind of hook you guys up with lubricant and toys and any of those kind of stuff that are as clean as possible. So not using plastics, not using hormone disrupting chemicals, not using sugar that's going to be going straight into the vagina and causing all kinds of issues. So if you're using any of that kind of stuff, then it can be really helpful to go with them. They also have really awesome ovulation test kits. So if you're into kind of checking out your ovulation all the time, and then they have like, it's somehow cheaper. I think you don't get the packaging that you'd normally get, but you get the instructions. And it's just so that they're able to sell those in bulk to women. I think for like $1.80 or something per stick. I don't know what it is. Don't quote me on it, but they are fabulous, and that's really, really also important for fertility. And then lastly, I'll talk about heavy metals. Now, this is also something that is both men and female related. To do a heavy metal cleanse, that's something that I would work with couples on, again, during that really intensive period. But generally how you do it, how you would do a good one, is there's minerals that look a lot like heavy metals. And so that's why heavy metals can cause such a huge array of issues in the body. And I'm going to get into symptoms in a second, so that you guys are aware. But they always have a mineral that looks like them. And so what you can do is take tons of vitamin C, so really, really saturate your body, which loosens them. And if you take the minerals, then it fights them out. It will take their place, and then that causes the heavy metals to exit the body. So that can be super, super, that's kind of how you'd conduct a really good cleanse. Now, you'd also probably add in some really powerfully detoxing heavy metal specific foods like chlorella. Is an algae that's really good for that. So that's kind of the basics, or the kind of rundown. So that's what you'd want to at least see. There are box kits and stuff. Usually they're not as spicy as the stuff that I'm recommending. And usually I'd go by symptoms, so specific stuff. I wouldn't necessarily cleanse out all if generally you're actually doing pretty good. And it's just one or two that's going on, or that's going off. So some symptoms of lead excess are constipation, cramps, or abdominal aches or discomfort, dizziness, anxiety or irritability, nervousness or restlessness, lack of ambition, apathy, or depression, hand tremors, poor coordination, sallow complexion, convulsions or seizures, paralysis, catch colds or infections easily, or vomiting. In children, that can also cause hyperactivity. So that would be the most common people who would have that are people that are soldering with lead-based solder. Mechanics are very common for that. If you have lead pipes coming into your house, or lead solder joints on your pipes for your water pipes, then that can also lead to overconsumption of lead. And then those are the symptoms that would kind of show themselves to you. Cadmium. Now, also keep in mind, if you have one of these symptoms, it's probably something else, and we'd eventually be able to nail down kind of depending on how you were feeling. But keep in mind that if this was really ringing true, it would be like, oh my gosh, like 8 or 10 out of those like are strongly kind of speaking to me. So that's one thing. For high amounts of cadmium, you'd be looking at high or low blood pressure, anemia, emphysema, and or kidney disease would be kind of the set of symptoms associated with that. And then copper excess, which can happen a lot because there's a lot of copper water pipes, so the water's sitting in there and then you're drinking it. Nausea or vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, excessive hair loss, hyperactivity, irritability, or nervousness. Depression are the symptoms for that. So at that point, you really want to kind of cleanse out and rebalance. Low copper, though, on the flip side, can make a lot of thyroid issues happen. So that's important to keep in mind. Lastly, I wanted to mention to you guys that chlamydia can be a big problem. So go get yourself tested for that. It can block fertility in women. It can block the fallopian tubes. So that is obviously something that you do not want. So those are my really specific tips for you guys. Cutting out nutrient depleters would also play into it. So sugar takes more nutrients to break down and absorb, which means it's stealing nutrients as you eat it, that your body really needs, especially if you're not balanced enough at this point to get pregnant. And caffeine also depletes out nutrients like a crazy. So that is also really important. And then we talked about alcohol already. So that is our massive discussion for you. We covered, here I'll actually go back over, we covered the nutrients that help sperm swim longer and stronger, also that create more volume of sperm. So all of that was in the male section. Things you want to avoid when you're trying to conceive. We talked about that specifically in regards to estrogen. So GMOs, non-organic or conventionally raised meat and dairy products are huge. Your plastics and that kind of stuff, saturated fat you want to lower, and then you want to increase your essential fats. Really, really important. So that will help you out. I mentioned flax oil with that, which is so fabulous because most people with what they're eating are getting so much of the one essential fat, but almost none of this even more powerful one. And so with flax oil, FLAX, or flax seeds, coming from flax seeds, which you always want to get full pressed, it's so fabulous for so many people because it's exactly the opposite ratio. So you're getting so much of the really, really powerfully healing one, and hardly any of the one that you're probably already getting lots of in your diet. So that can be so, so helpful. We talked about why vaginal health and pH is so important, and how to achieve the optimal environment that way. So when you're doing the Candida cleanse, ladies, if you do kind of kill off the yeast and bad bacteria, you can actually take high-dose probiotic pills. You want good quality ones. You don't want any nasty kind of fillers or any kind of stuff in there, but you can, if it's a really good quality one, you can insert it into your vagina and leave it there, and the capsule will dissolve and the bacteria will start to thrive in there and create the perfect pH to as far as conception and vaginal health and fighting off infection really goes from there. So that's really, really helpful. A few natural tracking methods to know when it's an optimal time to try. So as soon as you see that stretchy egg white consistency, that clear cervical fluid, that is the time to try. That's the time to have unprotected sex for sure. If you're looking to conceive, that is a huge, huge sign of fertility. And you generally see it either after you've gone to the bathroom or when you're wiping. If it's kind of clear across the toilet paper, then that's when you would see it, most likely. And we covered some amazing nutrients, foods, and superfoods to support you and put you in a place for really easy conception. So those were all of the things that we talked about tonight. So I hope you guys love this. I hope you learned a ton. I hope you feel like this is so in your control, like you are so capable of doing it. So much that's in this workshop plays really nicely with what's in the Glow membership. So it can be really, really important to look at the adrenal section, the thyroid section, the blood sugar, or eating too much sugar and getting it out, the caffeine section, and really looking to balance yourself out. And as you take notes from kind of all of those different ones, you'll be able to really, really feel much better and get yourself balanced out so that this can happen for you. So that is all for tonight. I hope you guys learned so much. I'm so excited for you. Definitely hit me up with an email after you have watched this. I would love to hear how you guys are doing, what you guys thought of everything, what you're going to be putting into place is especially what I want to hear, and any other good stuff. And that is all. So have a fabulous night. You are amazing, and I deeply wish that you will find yourself pregnant incredibly, incredibly soon. So that is all. I'm going to answer a quick question that I had through the week for a Glow membership client. And otherwise, I will talk to you guys later. Bye. So the supplement recommendation for Shannon. So this is kind of a tricky one because I can't point blank and I may need some more information for you. So What is not safe for breastfeeding was part of your question, is licorice, is the herb licorice. So that is not something that I would generally recommend, which is the Ortho-Adapt Vegan is the one that contains licorice. So that's not one that I recommend for breastfeeding women. For most women that are breastfeeding, the other one, the Camprev Adrenal Pro, is awesome, but I also can't blanket that statement completely. So I may get information from you maybe tomorrow. I will Facebook message you, and then we can chat about that, a few details on that. So that is all, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Take care. Bye.